Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for around about the next 45 minutes. Welcome along to our report designer session. It's the last in the series. Well, potentially we are running some reruns next week, but last of the series of our sessions. So it's session number 6. It's criteria and filters. So again, trying to give you more of an idea of some of the options that are available to help you define your reports and your layouts in Sage 50 accounts. So hopefully you can stick around for the 45 minutes, plenty to get through today. A little bit of housekeeping just before we get started with you all though. So as normal, if you've got a microphone, which you don't need for these sessions, it will be muted automatically. That means any questions you have for us, you'll need to submit them via the questions panel. To do that, you just click the little speech bubble icon on your taskbar on the right-hand side. It'll expand and you'll get access to that box at the bottom right-hand corner. So any questions, comments, pop them in there and we'll try and answer those questions for you. Now today we've got a wealth of experience in the background, all here to help answer those questions. So we've got Abby, Jackie, Sue, Tim and Tina all on hand. It's going to be a very busy session today, as we found for the rest of the report design sessions, quite an appetite for the learning more about the report designer. So they are all on hand. They'll try and answer your questions, maybe provide a link to you here and there, or maybe just encourage you to have a go of it within your software as well. Experiment with the report designer a little bit. If anyone wants them, there are copies of handouts available as well. So there's the standard sort of copy of the slides, and also there's the exact same copy but with the colour stripped out. So if you do like to print them and then add your own notes, you will have those available. Do take the opportunity during the session. As we don't actually have the facility to send them out on the email afterwards. So do take them if you need them. As usual though, you will be provided with, you'll be sent an email afterwards and that will include a number of links, and on that email there'll be a link to a recording of today's session. So if you need a bit of a recap and you want to work through it in your own, at your own speed, or maybe you just want to hone in on a certain part of this afternoon session, that will be available. There'll also be a link to our other recordings. So we've got loads of sessions booked in for this month, including our VAT series of webinars as well. So if you want to develop your knowledge in that area and gain confidence, then look out for those as well. I think there's 7 of those sessions. So again, get yourself registered. There will also be a link to our recordings, so if you've missed any sessions at all, you can access that via the recordings link. It's always the same links that we send out. Okay, let's have a look at what we're going to be covering in today's session. So we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of background to criteria and filters. We'll then run through some demonstrations for filters, and then we'll move on to criteria. And then just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support. So again, a lot of what we cover, we like to try and do as many demonstrations as possible just to show you what that looks like. Remember, you will have that recording available to you afterwards as well. So just as a little bit of an introduction to filters and also criteria, it's basically, and you've probably found yourself in this position as well when you run a report and there's actually too much data on there. Now, there are a few options for that, so criteria and filters. So before running a report, obviously you can, as we covered in session 1, you can apply a filter or a search or simply select the records from the main list. So you're doing that before the report is actually run. And when you run the report, only those records that you've selected will be included on the report. You may even apply criteria on top of that. But the criteria will then only apply to the records that you've got selected. If you haven't attended session number 1, obviously the recording is available for that one. Another option is obviously when running a report, you'll have the option of entering criteria. So the grey box that normally pops up might ask you for a transaction range, date range, customer range, that type of thing. So you'll be able to enter that at the point of running the report itself. And the other option is to amend the report and build a filter into it. So you would use that when maybe you want a specific report, you don't want to have to specify that each and every time. So when you don't want to have to enter specific selection criteria each and every time. So rather than you going and selecting the records that you want and then sort of running the report, you can build that into the design of the report. Now, today's session will focus on introducing you to the criteria and filters option within Report Designer. So it is just more of an introduction level, this one. And obviously, it should help you decide which method of limiting your data is the best option for you. So let's get started with criteria. So we'll start with our demonstration. So back to my screen. You see my desktop at that point. I'm going to be using version 30 this afternoon. Now, by default, most of the standard reports in Sage 50 accounts will have one or more criteria applied. For example, the ability to enter a date range, customer range, nominal range, etc. So when you run the report, that's when you'll be prompted for that. So we're going to start with a customer list report. I like to start with that one. It's a great starting point when you're trying to learn Report Designer, which is why we've tried to use that extensively in these sessions. Nice simple report, but it's a great one to use. So anyway, on customers, we're going to make sure that we've got nothing selected. Now, just in case, what you can do is you can click clear. Now, if you've got something selected that's off the screen, so I just highlight a few records, and you might look at your list, get rid of that one. You might look at your list and think, I've got nothing highlighted. If there's anything selected, then clear will be available for you. If it's there, it means you've got a selection. It might not be on your screen, but you've got some records selected in the background. So we're just going to click clear. You'll see that clear is now grayed out, meaning that there's nothing selected on the list. So make sure you've got nothing applied as well. And it says all records in this case as well. What I am using today as well is a copy of the demonstration data as well. So if you wanted to have a go at this and follow the recording through afterwards, then you can follow that almost through as well. The only difference is I've got a couple of extra records at the top from previous demos. Anyway, we'll click clear. So we've got nothing selected. We're going to pop into reports and then into customer details. We'll just select the customer list and we'll preview it. So as you can see, the criteria values window appears. So in this instance, it would let me choose a customer range, and it will also prompt me to show active, inactive. So I'm going to change this one to, rather than all records, I'm going to change it to is, and then I'm going to choose inactive. So I want to find only the records that I've got that are flagged as being inactive. So I OK that, and it gives me a list of records. Zoom in a bit so you can see that as well. Now you'll also see the selection criteria that we've just entered there. So that grey box that popped up, it will actually show you that at the top of the report here. So I didn't specify a range, so it'll always go from blank in this instance up to ZZZZ. That's essentially the last account reference that you could possibly have. And obviously having that on the report will just help you understand it. So if you're looking at a printout or maybe a PDF saved copy, you will have an idea of what criteria is applied. Now let's see how this is applied in Report Designer. Now you can quickly get into the Report Designer from the preview screen. Keep mentioning this one. A lot of people overlook it and will close out of the report, and then with the report selected, then click Edit. But you do have the Edit option at the top, and that's going to take you directly into the Report Designer for the report that you were looking at. Either way, it will achieve the same thing. Now for the criteria, we're just going to pop into Report at the top, and then we've got a criteria option. And the two criteria that we were prompted with when we run the report, you'll see they're listed. Let's just make that a little bit wider so we can see that. So you can see we have the customer reference and also the sales ledger inactive flag. So those were the two criteria that we prompted with when we ran it. Now, at the moment, you'll see the buttons are grayed out other than new criteria, but if we were to select one, you'll see that some of the options, they become active there on the right. And if we wanted to switch one off, for instance, if we didn't want to see this sales ledger inactive flag, we could just click modify. And if we wanted to, we could change the status to disabled. Now, there is a preset option, and we're not going to be covering that today, but obviously if you need information about that, you will be able to find it within our help center. So for the inactive, what we're going to do, we're just going to disable that for the time being. Just okay that. So they're still both listed. Obviously, customer reference shows as being enabled. The sales ledger inactive flag, part of the criteria, it shows as being disabled. So we just okay that. If we run the report, we'll just preview it using the little option at the bottom. The criteria window pops up, and this time we're only prompted, as you probably anticipated, we're only prompted with the customer reference, so we can specify that range if required. Let's just cancel that though. Back in design view, we'll just turn the criteria back on. So again, we're trying to learn a little bit or teach this by repetition a little bit. So back into report, into criteria, and you'll see that only the enabled criteria appears. So that one that we disabled, that one has been removed. So it was just flagged as disabled, and that's because we've okayed it. If we come back into that window, you'll only see any criteria that's enabled. Now, however, in the bottom left, we've got this option, show disabled, little checkbox here. And it tells us 15 disabled criteria available for the report. We select the checkbox. It will show us all the potential ones that we could potentially include for this type of report. Some of which, obviously, some of these that we don't even have on the report. So some of them will be things like transactions. It doesn't display any on this specific report, so pointless having them enabled. We just cancel that one. Actually, we'll go back into report, just back into criteria. I'll find the one I'm after. So it was, if I can find it. So actually it's near the top. I'll just highlight that one. I'll switch that one back on. So we'll just highlight it, click modify, and we'll switch that one back on. So we're back to the original report. So I'll just okay that, preview it again. And as you can see, we're back to the original criteria. So that's how easy it is to turn existing criteria on and off. Now, let's say we want to add additional criteria. So maybe the criteria that you want isn't on this default list or within reporting criteria. Potentially it could be added as a new criteria. For example, let's say you'd like to be able to select the sales rep when running a report. So you can see a list of customers for that sales rep. So what do I mean by that? What am I getting at? So let's just cancel out of the report for the time being. Close out a report designer. So if I go into a customer account and we pop onto the defaults tab, we've got the analysis fields. Now these are a great option for helping to filter your list, and you can use them for whatever you want. In the demonstration data, you've got things like analysis 1 field that's been renamed to customer type. So you'd record things like trade or public in there as an example. It means that you can filter on that one. You might want a list of your trade customers only, for instance. For the second analysis field, we've got responsible rep. So this is our sales rep. And we've got In this case, we've got it allocated to George. Now, if you wanted to amend these and you want to use them for something specific, you can do that. We've got a recorded webinar on the custom fields as well, if you are interested in finding out more about that. We look at renaming them, using them, and filtering your lists, etc. But generally on this data that I'm using today, I'll either have George or Malcolm set within this field, this second one here. And the idea of renaming them is just so when you are editing records, it reminds you what to put in what field. Right, let's just close out that for a second. Now, if we go back to customer reports, and again, we'll go back to the customer details, the customer list, and we'll edit it. Right, so what we'll do is we'll try and show you how you could add an extra report criteria. And what we're going to do is we're going to base it around that analysis too. So we're going to go into report, into criteria, and this time we're going to click new criteria. So again, if you're familiar with tables and variables, so basically we need to select, first of all, the table or the group. And if you've been paying attention in the other sessions that we've been running so far, you'll know we use sales ledger a lot. So we'll want to base it on a field within the customer record. So pulling information from the customer accounts, so sales ledger. We then need to choose the variable, which in our case is called analysis 2. Now, one thing it doesn't do on your list of variables, although you might change the title for analysis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, it doesn't change it on the list of variables. So it's still called analysis 2 in this instance. And then I'll just OK that. Now the status you'll see is automatically enabled. Again, I would have the same options as before, disabled, enabled, preset, so automatically enabled. You've got the option to rename the field as well. So it just comes up with analysis 2, in this case, the name of the actual variable itself. I'll just leave it at that for the time being, and we'll OK that. So if we just OK that as well, and go to run the report, you'll see that it adds that one in there. Now we'll go and make some changes before we come to run through this report. I just want to show you that we've added it within report and criteria, and now we'll come back and we'll change some of the options. Again, because we've renamed it, it hasn't brought that title through, so it would be worthwhile renaming it here as well. And you can also change the order of these as well. So if you think, the analysis 2 field is more important than showing or hiding the inactive records, then you can reorder that list as well if required. Let's quickly do that. Let's just cancel out of that for the time being. We'll go back to report, criteria. So there's analysis 2. We'll modify it, and I'm going to change it, and I'm going to call it. Actually, I'll do it so it's the same as the title itself. So we'll call it responsible rep. Just OK that. Just make sure I've done that. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. What I'll also do is I'll move it up the list as well. So I want that to be second on my criteria. I think it's got a higher priority than active or inactive. So we'll just select it, click move up, and it'll change the order when we come to run that report. Let's just have a quick look at that. So we'll OK that one. We'll sort of preview the report as well. You'll see it now brings it through. Now, customer reference, I'll just leave as is, show active, inactive as is. Now, this is a text-based field, this responsible rep So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, I want all of my customers where the responsible rep is Malcolm. I need to set that to is as well. So I'll set it to is and Malcolm. Just OK that. And that's what I'm left with, other than the, obviously the, rather than the full list itself. So it's easy to get at that information. Now, what you won't see at this stage is you don't see the criteria we've specified when we run that report. We haven't added in that extra bit. So any new criteria that you've enabled won't automatically appear on the report output. So this section at the top here. So you've got to add that in manually. And you can do this by adding text boxes and data fields from the criteria table. Let's just switch back. Now you can't save changes over an existing report. You'll be aware of that one if you've been attending these reports. So what we'll do is we'll go to File, Save As, and I'll give it a new file name. So I'm just going to call this RD6. So Report Designer Session 6. And I'll just save that as well. The other thing you can do as a reminder as well is change the name and description of the report. So if we went into Report and into Report Properties, we could again change the name. I'll just pop a slightly different name on there, and also we could change the report description as well if required. So we'll just OK that. We'll save our changes. Right, now if we wanted to add that section to that report, nice and easy to do that as well. So if we wanted to add that criteria so we can see what is included, again, we could just add a text box. So we'll do that. I'll just leave that on there. I'm not too concerned with the formatting. We'll just save a little bit of time and just leave it as is. And then we could add a data field on there as well, if required. So we just, again, add data field, click roughly where you want to insert that. And this time it would be from the criteria table. If we have a look at the criteria table, you see the kind of information that's available. Now you'll see, because we've got the sales ledger analysis that's now added as part of that criteria, it pulls that one on as well. It's not going to pull through things like analysis 1 or analysis 3 because they're not included in the criteria. So if you wanted to do that one, just OK that one. Obviously, you can change the formatting of it as well if you wanted to. Just drag it into position. And just in case you're going to do a from and to, you could add the other one in there as well. So let's do that one. That one's the from. We'll click again. We'll add in the to. Yeah, just scroll down to find it. Sales ledger analysis 2. And again, we'll just line it up very quickly, sorry. And we'll leave it at that. Again, we could put headings in so it matches these ones and change the fonts, etc. If we just have a quick look at what that would look like, just to give you a rough idea. Again, we've got our criteria there. I'll leave it set to Malcolm. Just OK that. And you can see it's got that on the criteria now. So you can see, again, if you've printed it or you've output and saved it as a file, you can see exactly what criteria is being specified when you run the report. Now, most layouts don't include criteria. So that's something to be aware of, except for, of course, customer statements. However, it can be added in the same way if required. So just to summarize the criteria, it's a way of limiting, obviously, the report data at the point of running the report. So useful if the selection criteria might change each time. Most reports will have at least one criteria enabled, the standard reports, but it will differ between reports as to obviously what's enabled. I'm sure if you've used Sage for even just a short period of time, you'll be aware of that. Different reports will offer you different criteria, such as date ranges, customer ranges, etc. As you've seen, criteria can be switched between enabled and disabled to turn it on or off within the report center. Nice and easy to do that. And the order of the criteria can be changed as well. And if necessary, a bit like what we've just done with the responsible rep, new criteria can be added if it's not already available as a default option within the report designer. Right, we're going to move on in that case. Keep your questions coming. I see we've had lots of them already. Quick question came in, I noticed about the people not having things like customer type. Just let me quickly show you that one. I'm just going to briefly touch on it. It's something that we've covered in other webinars before. So let's just close out of that very quickly and just touch on those custom fields. If you do want to rename your custom fields, so where mine were called sort of the analysis 1 to 6 fields, all you would do, you go into settings, into configuration, and you will have the custom fields tab at the top. So this is where I've changed mine. So by default, in the demonstration company that you have available to you, analysis 1 field it's been renamed to customer type. So it's whatever you want to use those fields for. What information do you want to record? The idea is you change those titles and you've got that consistency. So you haven't got one of your colleagues coming into a record thinking, right, which one of the analysis fields do I record sort of Malcolm or George against, for instance? They would know because you've changed the title, it goes in analysis 2 field. Hope that makes sense. Right, so we're going to move on. That's criteria. Next, we're going to move on to filters. So filters, again, similar. It's a way of limiting the data output on a report. Now, the idea of a filter is that you can embed that into the design of your report. So where you don't need an option to change it at the time of running it. So let's say, for instance, a bit like what we just looked at, let's say we designed a report specifically for Malcolm, just so he could run his own customer list report. We might embed that filter. And when he runs the customer list by Malcolm report, it's automatically embedded into it rather than giving them the ability to change it each and every time. So if you don't need to change something or you want a specific report, that's maybe when you would use a filter. Now, filters can be applied to the whole report, to sections, to objects, but as today's session is just an introduction to filters, we're going to focus on applying basic filters to the report itself. Again, if you need more detailed information on things like section filters, object filters, that type of thing, then again, you should find that within our help center. So we're going to run through a few examples on how to use filters. And this time, just a bit of a change, we're going to use the product details report. So rather than customers, bit of a dramatic change, I know, but we're going to use a product report. So quick demonstration. So we're going to products and services. I've got a great big list of products here. So pop into reports. We'll choose the product details and find it. There it is, product details. And we'll just preview that report for the time being. I'll accept the default criteria. And you can see the sort of the level of information that's included on the report itself. So it contains lots of information from each of the product records, a lot more than when we looked at the customer list and it just had basic contact information on there. So this has got a lot of information that's pulled through from the product records themselves. So there's a mixture of text fields, which is things like the descriptions, numeric fields. We've got things like in-stock values and also dates. So there's a date here, date of last purchase and date of last sale. So you've got a number of different types of fields available to you. Now what we'll do first is we'll do a filter based on on text fields. So let's say I only want to see products located in the location of, let's say, the workshop. So that's something I record within the product record. And I only want to see that. So some of these will say warehouse. If I scroll down, I've got some that say location supply direct. So what we'll do is we want to see only those that are in the workshop. So we've got a number of options. We can apply a filter to the main product list. So just product list, filter. And then we can apply that. Again, apply that beforehand. Or we can add a new criteria for the location. We could do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a filter to the report itself. And that way I don't need to worry about applying a filter in the product list or entering that at the time of running the report. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do that. It's all down to your preference. Right, we're going to go into edit this report then. So again, because we're in the preview mode, we've got edit at the top. It'll bring up the design of that in the report designer. Now, as you'll see, the design is similar to the preview, but instead of the data, you'll see obviously all the text boxes. Again, that top tip that we mentioned on previous webinars. Let's zoom in a little bit as well so you can see this. So if you hover over a text box, other than it putting like that sort of golden box around it, nothing happens. If you hover over a variable, then you'll get that little box appear and it'll give you more detail about it. Now the location, you'll see it here, it's in the middle of the details section. And we need to identify the data field being used for the location so that we can use that for the filter. So in this case, if we hover over it, and as you'll see, we just hover over it again on location, it says variable stock.location. So stock being the name of the table, location being the data field or the variable. So that's what we're after. Right, if we pop up to report and choose filters, what we need to do now, and again, if you've used similar to the search option that you would use when you're just filtering your list, we need to first of all specify the table. So it was stock. We then need to specify the variable. In this case, it was location. So on the drop down, obviously quite a few to go through. There's loads there. So if we just press the letter L, it'll jump down the list, and we could keep pressing L and it'll just sort of cycle through the ones beginning with L. So we're after location. Might save you half an hour of scrolling down that list. So just press the first letter if you know what it's called. The operator we're going to leave is set to equals. Obviously you can change that if needed. So equals. And finally, because its location is based on a text field, we've got this text box at the end. And I'm going to type workshop. This is where I'll make sure I've spelt that right, just so that the report works for the demonstration. Now, although we type workshop, I've used a capital W in this instance. It's not actually case sensitive. Some fields will be and some aren't. So that's something to watch out for. So most aren't case sensitive, but you will find the odd one that is. So be careful. When I do it, I try to just stick with the way I key it in. So try and be consistent. So anyway, if we just OK that, what we'll do is we'll preview the report. So notice there's nothing on here relating to the workshop. We've just added a filter built into the report itself. So if we just OK that, and what we should be left with, if we have a look here, so the first one, this AT mini tower case, location is workshop, next one is workshop. We continue scrolling down. And what we should all have basically at this stage is all of them. We should only have those products where workshop is included within the record in the location field. Now let's see what happens to the report itself if I change the operator. So where we said equals workshop. So let's get back to designer mode. We'll go back to report, into filters. So rather than stock location equals workshop, let's put does not equal. So again, there's various options for you here, but we'll do does not equal workshop. So if we just preview that one, okay it, and this time, let's zoom in, I can hardly read that myself. So if we zoom in, we can see this time, we should have basically every product that hasn't got workshop as a location. So we got warehouse, let's see if we've got a supply direct, we've got a few assigned to that. So as you can see, really easy to set up a basic filter. So we just go back to that report and the filters. So obviously to include, you want to put is equals. And obviously if you want to exclude a single item of data, so in this case we've tried to exclude workshop, you will put does not equal. So again, nice and easy, but sometimes quite easy, and we'll sometimes find this on the filters option that sometimes people just get them the wrong way around. They're thinking about what they want to get rid of rather than what they want to keep. Moha, you mentioned there, where is the location? Where does it need to be keyed in? It's entered just within the product record itself. So if you have a look in your product record, you should find a location field. But again, that could be any of the fields within there where you've got a text box. And we're going to pick up on another one next. So what we'll do now is we're going to clear that filter, the one that we've got. Just click clear filter, essentially it resets it. So if we just OK that, and we'll quickly preview it, and you'll see we get the mixture again. So we got warehouse, etc. Scroll down, supply direct. So we're back to where we were. So all of the data is now shown. Let's just get back to the top of that report. Now, what you can see on this report is that you can see two of the product descriptions start with A4, two of the ones that you can see it. Let's zoom in so you can see them. So some of these product descriptions do begin A4. And we're now going to we'll apply another filter to see what other A4 products we have. So we'll be basing that on the description. So again, hover over the data field just to see what it is called. Actually, we need to be in designer mode. So it's this one here. And what we'll see, it's called stock.description. So again, the table is stock and the variable is description. So we'll go back to report, into filters. Table in the first field, we want stock. Variable, we want description. Again, I can either scroll down or if we want to take a shortcut, just press, if I press D on the keyboard, it'll start cycling through the ones beginning with D. So we're going to say stock description. And this time, rather than equals, I'm going to say starts with. So I'm looking for all of the stock descriptions that begin A4. So in this case, just stock description starts with A4. We just OK that. Preview the report. And you'll see on this report, if I zoom in, you can see product description, the only one that's pulled through are the ones that begin with A4. Now let's change the operator again. So back to designer mode, reports, into filters, and this time we'll choose contains. If I can find it on the list, there it is. I'll just leave it set to contains A4. We'll OK that, preview it. And if we scroll down, you'll see we've got some others this time. So it doesn't start with A4, it's just got A4 somewhere within the description. So by changing the operator to contains A4, we can see a couple of extra products. So in this case, the laminator A4 and laminator pouches A4. So these have A4 at the end rather than beginning with that. So you also have reverse operators as well. So you could do does not start with or does not contain to exclude data from the beginning of the description or from anywhere within the data field as well. Now the starts with and contains operators are case sensitive. So when we looked at the analysis field before, that one wasn't, but the starts with and contains, those are case sensitive. So if, for instance, as an example, we go into report, into filters, and I just change that to A4, so changing the uppercase A to a lowercase a, OK that. Again, preview it. This time it's telling me hasn't found anything that meets that criteria. So hope that one makes sense. Now wildcards can't be used within the basic filter builder. So you need to use things like operators such as starts with or contains instead. However, you would be able to in the advanced filter. So there is an advanced filter builder as well, which we're not going into today, where you can replace single characters with things like percentage sign, etc., where you can use those wildcards. So wildcards available. You may be familiar with them from the standard filters option within your various ledgers. So an asterisk, the dollar, and the question mark. You'll find more information about those within the help center itself. Right, okay, let's just OK that. We're back in the designer mode. So loads of sort of simple examples that we can demonstrate for you on this. So next we'll have a quick look at filtering on a numeric field. So something like, say, the quantity in stock. Right, let's just pop into report, filters, and we'll clear the one that's there. Just OK it. We'll preview it, and we're back to, if we just OK that, we're back to a 15-page report. So it's including all of my products. So let's quickly add a filter to report against the in-stock value. So I want to see a list of products that currently have quantities in stock. And we can see that in stock value in the middle column, this one here. So you've got that against each of your products. In designer mode, just so I can see what variable that is, hover over it, and it tells me stock.quantity in stock. So it's that quantity in stock variable that I'm after. Right, into report, into filters. So a table is the stock table. The variable, quantity in stock. So I'll just press Q because that's quite a way down, that one. So we're after quantity in stock. So it's the second one beginning with Q. And this time I'm going to choose is greater than. And I'm going to leave the value set at 0. So we'll just OK that. Preview it. OK it. And what we now see on the reports, which is zoom in again so you can see that one, the in stock on the first item, it's 5. We've got 73 on the second item that's listed, etc. So anything that has a 0 value, it's no longer on there. Now again, there were a few different options that you could have done with that operator there. So we said is greater than. You might have done is less than. So you might have, if you've enabled negative stock on your software, it's available on, I can't remember the exact level or the exact variant of CH50 accounts it's now on, but you can enable, potentially allow negative stock. So you could be in a negative stock position on certain items. And you could also do things like is equal to 0. Maybe you want a list of products that currently have nothing in stock. You might be looking to generate a list of maybe those products that you no longer use. So again, that might be something you've got all those options available to you. So nice and easy to filter on numeric fields. I think it's probably a bit more, it's a bit easier when you're thinking about filters to be basing it around a numeric field like that. Right, let's switch back to the designer mode again. And what we'll now do is we'll filter on a date field. So on the preview, we can see both a couple of dates on here. We've got the date of last purchase, bottom left, and also the date of last sale, which is on bottom right. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a filter to only show products that have been sold from a particular date onwards. Again, you might think about it and think, well, actually, I want to run it the other way. So you might be looking to have a clear out of products that you haven't sold for a certain amount of time. So you might think, well, anything I haven't sold in the last 2 years, actually, we're going to generate a list of those and we'll look to remove that stock. But anyway, let's apply a basic filter based on a date field. So we're still in designer mode. We'll pop into reports, into filters. We'll clear the filter that's there at the moment. We hover over the date, if we just start building that one, what we're after is stock. And we're going to choose last sale date. So again, the products variable list is quite lengthy. So we'll just press L on the keyboard and jump down. We'll do last sale date. For the operator, I'm going to choose greater than or equal. And then we'll just pop in a date. So let's say 1st of January 2022. We'll just OK that. We'll preview it. OK the criteria. And that's it. So all of these dates where we've got a last sale date, they should be only include products where this date specifically is after or on or after the 1st of January 2022. Now the final example I'm going to give you, just to show you, is filtering using multiple conditions. So we've only looked at adding a single condition so far. So the basic filter window that we've looked at, it will allow you to add up to a maximum of 2 conditions. So what we'll do is we're going to go back to the first filter that we did, which was product location. So back into designer mode, we'll set that one back up. So report, filters, just quickly clear that one and build it again. So stock, location, there it is. We'll do equals, and we'll type workshop. So that's our first one. The next line, we've got an option of and, or. Easy for you to say, you're thinking, and, or. Yeah, we'll move on. And so you've got those two choices. Now, and will mean that both conditions that you're about to specify must be true, or means that either condition must be true. So in this case, we'll just choose or. We'll then complete the second line of the filter. So again, the same four options. We'll do stock, we'll do location. So again, let's just press L and find location. There it is. And this time we'll do equals warehouse. And we'll OK that. Now, if we just preview that one, OK the criteria, and we should now see that the only products that are listed are the ones that are located in the warehouse, which we've got some. If I scroll down, you can see we've got some listed in the workshop as well. Now again, sometimes with your filters, there could be more than one way to crack the same nut. I keep using this expression when we talk about report design. If I only had the 3 locations, it would have been easier for me to type is not equal to and put the 3rd location in. And then it would list the ones in the workshop and the warehouse. So I think supply direct is my 3rd one. So if you've got more than that though, it's easier to put the 2 filters in there. Now do be careful with that one as well when you're putting multiple locations in. If I change it by going into report, filters, and I change this to and, then it's not going to work for me. I can't have stock where the location is equal to workshop and the warehouse. If I based it on a different field, then yes, I could do that one. But if I just OK that and then try and filter the report, then nothing's going to meet that criteria. It's not possible in this particular instance. So both conditions can't be met. So you just need to be careful with that linking operator. So think about what the result is that you're after. Is it possible? Can something be both things at the same time or not? So a little bit of practice. Just need to get that right. Again, even just the filters on the normal ledger lists, we get loads of queries on those as well. Right, now looking at the time, we're a little bit pushed for time at that point. So what we'll do, we're just about ready to end the webinar just at that point. So just to summarize filters very quickly, the same rules apply to filters across reports and layouts, so in all modules. You preview your report or your layout first to find out, so a good little tip, that one. If you filter your report or your layout first to find out what's the data you want to filter on. And then obviously in the designer mode, hover over the data field to identify the table and the name of the data field itself. And then it's easy to apply that filter. And once you're happy with your results, don't forget, you can go into report, into report properties, change your report name. So for instance, you could put location, so report name, product details, workshop, for instance, if you've already got that filter, so you can easily identify it, or you might want to include that in the description itself. And obviously, if it's a standard report, you'll then need to do a file save as. But that brings us to the end of today's session. Now we're going to hang around for questions for the last just another few minutes. Remember, if you weren't quite with us at the beginning of the session and you've got any questions, what you need to do is click the little speech bubble icon. That will expand your panel and you get that box in the bottom right hand corner. Any questions, pop them in there, click send. Really experienced team on hand today to answer those questions. Pop in your questions, click send, and we'll try and get an answer to you. Just as a reminder, Help Center, great resource. I plug this just on about every single webinar we do. There is specifically a reports and layout section. You can access that when you're working in the software, or just literally by opening your browser, sage.co.uk/help. You'll then be prompted to choose Sage 50 accounts. And then you can either start browsing through the information, or you can type a few keywords in the search box at the top. Hopefully that should make it easy to find whatever it is you're after. Final reminder and last call for webinar sign-ups. So we've actually completed the first run through of all of the sessions now, and we've done the repeats of sessions 1 to 4 as well. We will be repeating sessions 5 and 6 next week. I think off the top of my head, I think session 5 is on I can't remember, Tuesday or the Wednesday at 11, and then session 6. So this session, if you'd like to come along, maybe have a play with it and come along armed with your questions, you're more than welcome to do that. Then session 6 is repeated on Thursday next week at 11. So get yourself registered. If you didn't get a chance to attend any of the sessions or you need a bit of a recap, the links to our recordings will be available for you on your follow-up email. Now, I always ask one favour from you, and that's as you leave today, there'll be a little survey pop up. If you've got any feedback for us, thoughts, ideas that you want to share as well, what you'd like to see going forward, please let us know. If you can take a minute to complete that survey, it'd be greatly appreciated. It's all we ask. If you can just do that. Follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour's time. So do take the opportunity to get yourself registered for repeats as well. And remember, there are loads of other sessions as well. So do check that out. We've got some great VAT sessions coming up. I think we've got 7 different VAT sessions, not just on running the VAT return itself, but we're looking at things like tax codes, running reports to help you agree your figures on your VAT return, corrections we're going to be covering, the verification checks, etc. So have a good look through there, see if there's any that interest you, get yourself registered, and we hope to see you on them soon. So we'll end the webinar on that point. Many thanks for coming along. Take care, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you on some other webinars soon. Many thanks.